Hello, everyone. It's good to be back at the Grad Center. So I'm not going to say very much at all. I've had the pleasure of working with Jyllian and Holloway and others in kind of thinking about this film since we showed it in NYU. And some of you may know I'm a graduate of the Urban Ed program, and I'm a faculty member at NYU. And I just think it has really great potential, and I think its tagline, "It's bigger than school," is pretty much everything we've ever learned from Gene Onion in terms of thinking about how to situate urban education within a broader analysis of political economy and other forces that are impacting school. And so that if we want to have anything change in school, we really do have to think about those things that are outside of school. So this is actually a perfect film for us to be discussing. And I want to give them most of the time and to both introduce themselves, and then also, I imagine most of the questions will be directed to them.
It's funny that you say that, because I imagined almost none of the questions being directed to me, because I'm the outreach director on the film, but Michael's been a really important part of just informing us about how we move forward in terms of education and sort of thinking along those routes. I think that we're much more sort of filmic people, and the education experts are sitting on either side of us. So again, my name's Callie, and I'm the outreach director. I'm happy to answer questions about the film, but I think the education questions should go here and here.
I agree. I'm Jyllian Gunther. I'm the filmmaker, and yes, you feel free to ask any questions. Wow, I did that. Oh, there it goes. To me, but actually we have Toni Coston here, who can introduce herself, who's actually in the film and works at the school, has been a long-time educator. So if you have those kind of questions, you can ask Toni. Who is she?
Hi. I can't just...
Yes, you can
okay.
do that one.
Hi, I'm Toni Coston. I'm a founding member of BCAM. I'm the woman who changed her hair every scene, so you might not recognize me now. But yes, so I'm founding member. I taught Global 1 and Government and Economics, and then I moved on to be the assistant principal of the school. So that's it.
So I believe people are coming to the mic. Is that how you're doing it?
How are you seeing these
I'll look at these
people?
while somebody should come to the mic. I'll look at some of these.
Is somebody seeing I'm just wondering if I should film the perspective of the audience, because that's the one I'm interested in. But do you guys, are you also capturing the people that are asking questions? Okay, great. So then I don't have to be a filmmaker. Thank you.
The person in the film said they had other issues, but they didn't elaborate. Those of us who live those other issues know what they are. But do you want to talk a little bit about that? Jill, right?
Jyllian, yeah.
Jillian, I happen to be a consumer advocate since 1985, also a teacher since, 30 years with the public school board of ed, right pretty much there. I go all over now, I substitute. If you can elaborate in the community, what they were mentioning, the other hardships in the community, why they're not able to progress.
Do you want to
That's
answer?
interesting.
No, I want you to start.
Okay, I'm a little unclear. You're saying what exactly?
Someone mentioned in your film about the other complications in the community that keep the kids from progressing. Do you want to elaborate more about that, Julie?
Oh,
Yeah, go for it.
so I'll let
No, I'd
Jillian.
like you to, please. I know
No
she
problem.
knows. I know she knows. I'd like you to.
Okay. So other issues that were faced by the community. There was gentrification in
The
the.
society at large, not just their community, but you could include their community as well as the society at large.
Well, I think, I'm start with their community. There was a great deal of gentrification happening in the community. There was public schools are low funded, have historical issues within communities in which schools are segregated. There is, socio-political issues that exist, and it makes it very difficult for a school to do everything. I think we often expect schools to handle all the issues that come with kids that come to school. And this is across the country. Our entire country is like this. So this school is one example of that. I feel a little bit like you're testing me, so I'm curious to know.
Well, I hardly have any questions to ask.
Okay.
I happen to be in addition to what I mentioned before, a consumer advocate for many years. I happen to also be an inventor for many years. And some of these kids in this program know that they're going to be treated differently once they're out of school. So they put a jump on it. They said, I'm going to act the way I'm going to act. Do you know that as an inventor, it's hard for me to get an intellectual property an attorney to even return phone calls? That's what that mother was going through and all the other stuff. But I would imagine you guys are looking for possibly, I could be wrong, an Oscar for short documentary or whatever. I didn't feel anybody cared about the kids. And that's just my opinion and my right to speak.
Yeah. May I,
It's a
ma'am,
whole
if you don't
different
mind?
world once they graduate. And
I
you
agree.
guys, the fellow at the end and the young lady at the
Yes,
end
ma'am.
and this young lady right here know that. And those of us whose grandparents, possibly not myself, but went through the Holocaust, whatever. Because this shit is real deep. And everybody up there, I believe, knows it.
Ma'am, may I just interrupt and say, as someone who did found the school and has worked there for the past 9 years, that there were numerous adults who cared about these students. And anytime the filmmakers came into my classroom, everything they filmed was real. Everything you saw was real. This was unfortunately and fortunately that we can now see what is going on in an urban public school from a real standpoint, not from a commercialized, let's paint a wonderful picture of how a new school movement might be. This is what's going on, and this isn't even the tip of the iceberg. There were many times that I was uncomfortable with having the filmmakers come in because it was a little too real. Because this is actually the nitty-gritty about what's happening. So I just wanted to share that with the rest of the audience. Yeah.
I'm gonna move to some of the other questions because I want to make sure that others get their questions. Okay, so this person asks, I'm working at a new middle school in the Bronx. We've been open for 3 months and we're still in our honeymoon. How can we sustain our energy and any major pitfalls we could avoid? If after coming back to BCAM in its 4th year, you could travel back in time to its first, what would you tell them?
So I worked, before starting BCAM, I worked at middle school in the Bronx as well. I don't know who wrote that. We can talk later. Yes. And I think one of the things, I think you have a leg up because you see the process that schools go through. And when I started teaching, even though there are wonderful people who have taught for years before you all of the time, no one can really ever say, like, this is the process of what a new school will go through. And I think the honeymoon period has to be taken with a grain of salt. And I've said this in front of Jyllian before, like, when you open a school, it's your baby, your first child. And you do all these things for your first child, and then you have another one, and you kind of learn from that. You figure out, ooh, maybe I should not have let them sleep in the bed with me every night. Like, that's a bad idea. You know what I mean? Because now trying to break away is difficult. Or maybe I shouldn't have given them ice cream every time they asked for it, because now, whatever the issue may be. And I think opening a school and going through that honeymoon period, you have to take time to really plan out how you want that 4-year cycle to go. And that's not something that we necessarily did. We were focused on small nuances that kept us from thinking about 4 years. Additionally, because we had never done it, we didn't know what to expect year 2. We weren't thinking about Regents exams because in high school, in your first year, none of your students are taking Regents exams. So why are we thinking about, okay, 3 years from now, we need to prep. We are going through the motions trying to make sure, are the kids here every day? Okay, do we have textbooks? Okay, who needs this, who needs that? So I would say, really have an outline of what you want your 4 years to be. Year 2, that's the only time you double. Year 3, you're still trying to figure out, okay, now it's like, oh shoot, they're taking an English, Regents exam. What didn't we do when they were freshmen that we need to do now? So just planning out in terms of 4 years, I would say, really think through that.
This person in the back, he's had hands up first.
People could please come with the mic.
Where's Mike?
Advanced questions. We are following on in this. Let's ask some advanced questions, okay, guys?
Pressure's on.
I have no any experience about American high school because I see on the result on the colleges how looks, for example, math and something, strong science. And my question is this typical high school here? Why is so segregated? They said me because it looks like only few teachers were different color, yeah, or something. And why? And everybody claims that you don't have enough money. But if you compare with Europe and Asia, salary of teachers and money per student, yeah, spent, it's very good. And my question is why is a method what you can do to mix just people from different colors or something like
That's a really large question.
Yeah.
I think larger for the panel to respond to. But I'm wondering if I can answer a part of it.
Yeah.
If I can ask them to kind of just talk about the maybe the makeup of Bed-Stuy in terms of race and ethnicity, and the makeup of the teaching staff, and some of the discussions you've all had around race and class and within the school.
So, I mean, I can't do a demographics lesson on Bedford-Stuyvesant at the moment. I think the student population in the school reflects the demographics of Bedford-Stuyvesant.
I have a comment to say that I was truly inspired by the courage of making a film like this because of what it showed, the realness of the day-to-day experiences. The question I had was, what were any changes that you made as a result of kind of the lessons learned?
So this is a growing process and something that I share with new teachers or teachers in general. If you feel like at this point you know what you're doing, you have to really take a mirror and look at yourself, because teaching is a lifelong learning process. Every day, every moment you're in the classroom in front of 20, 34, which is the max in New York City, but we all know it can be worse than that. Anytime you're in front of a group of students, second by second, you can always improve. So even thinking through, now that the school has been established for 9 years, there's still things that I'm like, man, what are we doing? We need to figure this out. Some of the things that happened that allowed us to grow and get better are that we created structures. We had conversations about simple things like a uniform, and we held ourselves accountable to it. So whereas, and small things like that really made a difference, because now we had a foundation to say, no, you can't come in here like that. Our expectations of you when you walk into our school are A, B, and C. And when you give students expectations to meet, they're gonna meet them. So we kept raising the expectations. We hired another dean. So we had someone else to focus on discipline issues so that the principal could, do the things he needed to do, so that I could do the things I needed to do when I was in the classroom, instead of saying, come here, let me speak to you outside, even though that's good teacher practice. But sometimes I just want to teach. Sometimes I just want to teach, and I've spoken to you, so now I'm going to send you to Miss Green. So, and having that outlet really helped. So creating the structure that we could hold ourselves accountable and then hold the students accountable to really made a big difference. So it's about finding that foundation and sticking to it.
And I'll say that from the outside, as observing, it was interesting. I always use the same analogy when we're not together about the first parent thing, because it's very clear that there's a fear in there's a kid handling in the beginning. They're scared to have expectations. They want to make a democratic community so that everybody has a voice, but you have to be consistent in what you're asking folks to respond to, how they are involved, how much their voice will play a part in decision making. And I think that was very shady in the beginning. People, they were still trying to figure that out. So it was very clear that once they came up with a structure, and that was the lacking, and students had a sense of what was expected of them and what their voice meant in the school and who they would talk to for what things, that things started to run a lot smoother. I think for that first class, there's always the difficulty of, like with the first child, where you're changing the rules and they're going to be angry. So the kids that came in after that had a different perspective because they were in a system that was, structured. So the kids they were bummed out in many ways, even though they had a pride of being the first class. They were also saying, how come I can't do this now when I could do it then? And, so that was tricky. And I think that's why they sort of lost a grip on that class in many ways.
There's a question related, remember the scene when Moses and his mother are in the car and she tells him that he can't chew gum, even though it seems like the school was allowing him to chew gum, and she said that's not how you were raised. And so this question is basically about models or examples of parents helping to construct school rules based on family, community, or cultural norms and expectations. And we could also broaden that to think about how you've attempted to involve parents in that community and what some of the opportunities and challenges of that are.
So one of the things that we structured at BCAM is we reach out to our parents and invite them into the schools more often than what New York City says is necessary. So 8 times a year we send out report cards instead of just semester wise. So we try to be in constant contact with our parents. We also have an advisory system. Most schools have some sort of advisory system now, where there's one teacher leader in charge of 12 to 15 students. They are the ones who communicate with the parents, things like that. What I enjoyed about BCAM's parents and about being able to reach out to parents as much as I did is that I had the ability to be very upfront and honest, and I didn't need to play nice with parents because I spoke to you so often. And I don't say that to say like every time I was on the phone with a parent I had something bad to say, no, but like in the scene where I'm talking to Moses' mom about him not being in class and she, starts to cry, like that could have been an uncomfortable situation. However, the relationship that we had, because I speak to you, because I'm not lying to you, I'm not playing games, like we can sit and have that really difficult conversation, and it becomes not just Moses and I talking in the classroom and not just me and his mom speaking on the cell phone as I'm trying to go home or whatever the case, but now all three of us know where we stand. And I think that allowed for a lot of growth in different ways. So if you have a child in a public school, please call the teachers. Reach out to them as well. Like, it really makes a difference when you can sit and have those conversations. And I didn't let students chew gum in my class, but some teachers did. Again, that comes back to structure. Mm-hmm. Like, we all need to be on the same page. Even though Moses' mom was bringing that from a home base, the fact that she put it on him in school that he should still do these things, in my opinion, it was great. There's some home rules that I'm like, no, don't do that in the classroom, but it just depends. Like, again, we all three parties, students, family, teachers, have to be in alignment in some way for it to work.
So, Michael, we have a question over here.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Kim Irby, and I am a parent of 6 children that I have maneuvered through New York City public school systems. And because of my experience with the small school model, I definitely do not recommend that model. Primarily because I believe that the schools are so small that they don't get enough money to facilitate the things that high school students definitely need. I will, I advocate for the larger school and maybe within the structure to bring in different programs that children and students are interested in and, to be on that proficient college track. My biggest concern is that, parents don't know that a new school is an experiment. I experienced that. My child was in Nest, and he decided he didn't want to stay with Nest for high school. And yes, in Nest, he was already advanced. So the new opening high school does not offer the advanced classes that he was not able to take. Right. So entering a small school, so a parent that has a child that has already taken advanced classes in middle school, a new small school unfortunately cannot facilitate the continued education of that child, because my experience in that school was boredom. I did this work already. Why am I here? I said, well, you made a choice. So I learned from experience that, if you have a child that's already doing advanced classes in their middle school, a new small high school will not be, to me, the appropriate place to facilitate that conversation. And I do know Dia Veth that graduated from BCAM, and she's doing really well. Yes. I was part of District 13's CEC, so I did engage with your principal, and I know it's a struggle. I don't know how we can, like I said, more resources have to go into the new small school model. And the last point is that new small schools don't mean small class size.
Right.
And a lot of parents, we were sold, oh, it's a small school, but yeah, we still got 30 kids in the class. So we need to have like these little defined things that when we introduce a new school in the Department of Education in New York City, what parents are gonna go through, what children are gonna go through, and whether or not, you have a staff that's gonna listen to the experienced parents, because lots of times you guys were a little bit too young and didn't have any children of your own.
May I? So thank you for sharing that. If you see Dia Veth, please tell her I said hello. Okay, thank you. So I mean, there's really no there's no back and forth. I agree with tons of things that you said. And I just want to put it out there. I don't make any money from the film. I'm not trying to get an Oscar. What I'm saying to you guys, I mean, and that right there is why I think a movie like this is so important, because you need to know what you're getting into. Like, people have this idea of coming into urban settings and teaching and thinking like, oh, I'm gonna change the world, and you may, but you need to think about what's going to happen before that happens, or the process that you're going to go through before you see a little light at the end of the tunnel, and there are those lights. However, this is not, teaching anything anywhere is not an easy job. And even though I am an advocate for the small schools movement, because I went to a small school, because I believe that if the community is smaller, you can spread the little bit of resources you have in a more family-like fashion. But I agree, we can't have a swimming pool. We don't even have our own building. Like, we can't teach AP courses to your freshmen until we've had enough students to say we've had a junior class, and now we have enough students that qualify for an AP course. There's all of these things, but everyone needs to be educated. And I feel like the reason that and someone said this earlier, the reason that we don't have students who go to our school from Brooklyn Tech, even though our population might look like there might be some Brooklyn Tech kids in there, is because we don't have everything that a school established like Brooklyn Tech has. There's no way that we could. We're a staff of 30. They're a staff of 3,000. You know what I mean? There's no way. Just strategically, it can't happen. And I think parents need to know that. Students need to know that. But just to put it out there, for our first class, what we knew about them was their names and their addresses. And that's it. And we accepted everyone. We were not trying to cherry pick the students that were going to fit with us. We took them as they were.
And still do.
But that is the biggest mistake of the small school model.
We can't do anything else. And the DOE, to this day, I would tell you, We just got a new junior, and it's December. We just got a new freshman. They send students, and not just to my school, they will send students to a school on a safety transfer because they moved from Georgia, whatever the case is. And we are going to take that student and we're going to do what we can do with that student and meet them where they are and try to take them further. That's all we can do, yeah.
So
I have a two-part question. This is very long. The first part is, what relationship, if any, did you establish at the school with CBOs? Mostly because, community-based organization.
Thank you.
Okay, we all look.
That's right, I just learned that like 6 weeks ago. And
Many.
mostly I'm asking because John, in the film, like that hurt my heart. And so I'm just wondering, like, seeing that and obviously he's coming to the school and talking about it and mentioning things, like what kind of supports are you able to offer for the students outside, and maybe not you, but at least what resources they can depend on or turn to?
in the interest of time, I think I'm going to have them answer that one because we're
My second
running.
one's really short, and I really like it.
Ask it quick.
The second one is, can you just give us like a 30-second follow-up on where the kids are?
So the school was one of the things that was amazing about the starting of the school. And I will say, just want to say quickly that the film was not meant to advocate for small schools or promote any kind of an opinion. It wasn't waiting for Superman. The point was, which is why we won't ever win an Oscar, is that the film, it doesn't have a happy ending. It's a bittersweet story that's of reality. And okay, so
I'm sorry, we only have a couple minutes and we need to let them actually speak.
So I wanted to say there's a preface to when I grew up here. I went to public school my whole life in Brooklyn and New York, and seeing these guys starting the school, one of the things that was interesting to me was that everybody they interviewed wanted to be a part of the school. Every community organization they had contacted wanted to be connected to the school. So they started out with connections to the local Y, to the Whitney Museum, to MTV, to Global Action Project. They had so many resources that in a normal art school, arts and media school, you have to have a portfolio to get into. And this school was an open enrollment school that really made use of New York City that has a plethora of opportunities. And so they had a lot of internships. John got so much support outside within his community. He worked at DCTV, at PBS NewsHour. He worked, he got to work at.
Second.
Yes. So this John Dargan is a senior at Connecticut College. He's going to graduate. He's done an internship and got scholarships every year, many of which he still comes back to BCAM and gets the PBS NewsHour. He got to film the inauguration with PBS, and that came from BCAM. So he's doing really, really well. He's majors in gender studies and with a minor in film that he created himself because that school didn't have it, but he was on the 4-year scholarship. Moses is still at Shaw University. He's going to graduate in December. He's doing great and is very similar to how he was, and we just were with him last week, and still has a great sense of humor and likes to, is very social, and he is graduating a half a year late, which he attributes to that, but he's still doing well and he's getting his CPA. Who else? Kevin Greer, the teacher, is still teaching at BCAM as well, and he's the chair of the English department. Who else? Tony is right here. Everybody else is still working at the school. Charlene, the social worker, just left because she moved back to
California with her family.
But that was for nobody left otherwise.
One of the things that we've talked about with this film is that it really there isn't really a message in terms of trying to win you over to this or that. So there's a lot of, in the documentary, there's a lot of actual just scenes of things happening in the everyday lives of the schools, and that's one of the reasons I thought it might be interesting for those in urban education and in educational leadership, just not as a message film, but as a way to open up different conversations. And so we could actually have critique of things that people did in the film, or things that were allowed to happen in the school, and and ways that people might be thinking about it differently. When you capture documentary, it's in the moment that year, and you all allowed your blemishes and everything to be on screen, and many of the times we only see the polished, what people would like to be seen in their best light. So it really opens up for educators this sense of that vulnerability that we could bring to the film in terms of our own uncertainties or our own questions about how to handle different situations and what our responsibility is, how to think about the broader social and economic context that seems outside of our control but yet impacts what goes on in schools, how to not feel despair. Those are questions we didn't get to, where somebody said, well, how do you deal with the issue of despair? And I don't know, it'd be interesting to hear from a lot of you, to communicate with them how you think it might be used to open up conversations, not to be the conversation. And so I think they'd like to hear from you that if you're upstairs.
So we look forward to having a conversation with you all upstairs in 5409. We have to clear out the space.
Thank you.